and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to cover the Rogue's Mastermind class specialization from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features gained. The rogues of this subclass will usually oversee those of the Inquisitive class, in that they manage the people who gain them the secrets they so desire. Masterminds will always be involved in manipulating the strings of people to get the things that they want, and as a result, they will usually be more hands-on about it in comparison to other spy masters. I say that because the mastermind will always be in attendance at those parleys where councils decide the fates of the world, and will usually be unabashed about being there, as they will be as comfortable there as they would be dealing with things from the shadows. However, while words may be their primary weapon, if they must resort to violence, they are not shy about that either, and as a result have some capable combat skills to complement their verbal fencing. Rogues choose their class specialization at level 3, so you will have time to consider what subclass you wish to take before you get to level 3. However, let's go ahead and level this current character up so that we can start taking a look at our features. And in this case, I'm going to choose Mastermind. The first feature your character will gain is called Master of Intrigue, which gives your character proficiencies that complement their needs. In this case, your character will be proficient in disguise and forgery kits, as well as gain an additional gaming set proficiency. This is in addition to any gaming sets your character might already be proficient in, as some backgrounds do provide this proficiency as well, and this is not meant to replace those. Additionally, your character also gains the ability to learn 2 new languages of your choice, which is always a useful option. So before I get into more about how you can benefit from this particular feature, let's go ahead and take care of all of the additions that we now have to make. The first is around the proficiency specific to the disguise and forgery kits. And for some reason, my character sheet here has 2 thieves tools, so I'm going to replace one of those with one of the new proficiencies. And to add in a new one, you just hit enter and then create another entry. Forgery kits. All right, so I'm now proficient with forgery kits, disguise kits, and thieves tools, as well as all the other features that we have there. I also gain access to a brand new set of gaming sets. So I'm going to go to tools and take a look at the gaming sets here. And we've got dice, dragon chess, playing card set, and 3 dragon ante set. Ante set, not ante. I'm going to take the dragon chess set. So I'm going to add dragon chess as another proficiency here. Doesn't mean you gain that actual set. It just means you gain proficiency with it. Now, the final thing I want to take care of is the languages. Right now, we know Common and Goblin because this character's Goblin, despite the image there. Just ignore that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the player's handbook, load up the reference manual here, and then I'm just going to type in languages. And at some point, you will see a languages option here. This is the table that we want to look at, and unless your character, or your DM I should say, is going to allow very exotic languages, you're most likely going to choose from this group here. It's not impossible that you have learned one of these languages, but it's very, very unlikely. So it's going to be up to the DM as to how flexible they're going to be there. In this particular case, I'm going to add Elvish and Gnomish to this particular character sheet. So with all of the changes added to our character sheet, how do you go about making use of this particular feature? Through observation, specifically when studying how a particular individual speaks for a total of 60 seconds, your character will gain the means to perfectly mimic the way that individual spoke. When combining this with the disguise kit and the ability to learn how an individual speaks, your character is going to be able to replicate the accent and the inflections of that speaker without fail, and pass your character off as being an individual from the same region. This does not mean that you can listen to an individual and gain the ability to sound exactly like them. This is more around picking up on the various ways and the different ways that people speak a given language for a specific region of a given area, and then be able to use that same inflection and pattern and tone when speaking to be able to make your own character sound as if they are also a native from that specific region. The only consideration that has to be taken into account is that your character must be able to speak the language of the individual that they were observing to be able to pick up on those inflections. As a result, through this feature, your character will be able to completely convince anyone that you are an individual from that particular region without even having to roll. Also at Rogue Level 3, your character will receive the Master of Tactics feature, which allows your character to help others during their attack action, as a bonus action rather than as a full action. It also extends the reach of that help action, so that the target that your ally is attacking can be up to 30 feet away from your character rather than the usual 5. And the way we want to go and set this up is as follows. The first thing we need to do is drop in Master of Tactics here, and I have no idea why I have no skills here, but I'll deal with that later. Anyway, I want to go through and create a new group called Mastermind. Once I have that, I want to add in a new effect. And what you're going to be doing is granting advantage. So in this case, Master of Tactics. Semicolon. And we simply want to grant ADV ADK. ADV ADK. ATK, I should say. And it will expire on the next roll. And what this is going to do is, as your character wants to go ahead and help another character, they will apply this effect to that character before they make their attack roll. So let's see what that looks like in combat. So I've gone ahead and set up a very quick scenario here. Let's say that the rogue is within 30 feet of the adult white dragon here. The ape is standing next to that dragon. The rogue is going to say, as part of a bonus action, I'm going to help the ape using Master of Tactics in relation to attacking that adult white dragon. So at that point, you're going to drag the effect Master of Tactics onto Ape 1. As combat progresses, eventually when the turn comes around to the ape, and they go ahead and make their attack roll against that dragon, it will roll with advantage. Now, you won't be able to see the actual dice itself, but you'll see the result here. And what you can do is you can see that there's a green dice here, which indicates it's an advantage roll, and that there's the ADV tag here to indicate that it's an advantage roll. That's essentially how Master of Tactics works. Next time it comes around where your turn is now functional again, you can reapply it to another ally if you happen to have one. Though that, of course, assumes that all of the appropriate conditions match in order for you to be able to apply that. At Rogue Level 9, your character will receive the Insightful Manipulator feature, and it gives your character the means to interact with a given creature in a non-combat situation and study them for 1 minute. This studying will reveal 2 capabilities about that creature as your conversation progresses. And the things that your character can learn is along the following lines. Whether your character is going to be superior or inferior to that particular creature's intelligence, wisdom, or charisma scores. And whether your character is superior or inferior in relation to that creature's class level, if it happens to have any. And you only get to choose 2 of those options. And for example, you could compare whether your intelligence or their intelligence is higher, at the same time comparing whether their charisma score is higher than yours. And again, you'll only get a superior or inferior response back from the DM. Another example of that would be comparing your wisdom score and the class level against that particular creature. So it's any combination of 2 of those things. So the intelligence, wisdom, and charisma values themselves are each individual things that you can check on. So you would not be able to check on their intelligence, wisdom, and charisma at the same time as you're checking their level. You can only choose a class level, the charisma score, the wisdom score, or the intelligence score, and a combination of those 2. The other limitation is that your character must be able to have that full 60-second conversation with the target in order for them to be able to realize any of those above details. So it's very critical that you're able to complete that. If you hit 59 seconds, but don't quite get to 60 seconds, you will learn nothing. However, the DM can add some additional information that you might also be able to learn in relation to that creature, specifically some aspect of their personality traits or their history, if there's anything there that can be mentioned about them. And that's in combination with the above 2 items that you can learn. As another example, if your character chose to have a dialogue with an adult copper dragon, then they should be able to discern the above details as well as potentially gain insight into their personality. And let's say you chose to figure out whether your class level was higher than theirs and whether their intelligence was higher than yours or not. Now, if that dragon was famous or had at some point in the past been involved in some aspect of the world that may have been recorded down somewhere, the DM might also choose to have your character realize that they know that history or that they know who this dragon is. At Rogue level 13, your character will gain the Misdirection feature, allowing your character to potentially redirect an attack that was meant for them to another creature that is within 5 feet of where your character stands, and could be considered providing some cover as part of that process. If this set of conditions is matched, you can tell the DM that as a reaction, you're going to misdirect the attack so that the attack hits the other creature and not your own character. Let's say, for example, you were in a melee combat with an ogre and another ogre happened to be behind that particular ogre and they decide to throw a rock at your character. You could make use of that reaction and redirect that attack so that it's made against the ogre that is between you and the ogre throwing the rock, as technically that middle ogre is providing you some level of cover. However, if that ogre that is throwing the rock is, say, facing your left flank and there's no obstruction in any way, shape, or form from that ogre that you're currently in melee combat with, preventing that ogre throwing the rock in your direction, you would not be able to make use of this reaction unless you can somehow find a way to move quickly enough to get that other ogre into a position where it's providing you some level of cover. Now, the good news for you is because you're using a feature to be able to make use of that reaction, you don't need to quote unquote ready that action, if you will, in order for it to be able to trigger, because it's the feature that is giving you the quote unquote ready condition already in place for you to be able to actually make use of it. And finally, at Rogue level 17, your character is going to gain their last feature called Soul of Deceit, which allows your character to block the means of others being able to read your thoughts via any method, unless you allow it. However, you can take advantage of this situation and attempt to leak out false information, if you will. By making use of a successful deception check against the target's insight check, you can present false information to anyone who you allow to read your mind. Your character will also be able to ignore the effects of magic that force your character to speak only the truth, and when your character does speak, regardless of if they are lying or not, the spell that is doing that to you will detect that your character's always speaking truth. Now, outside of the Master of Intrigue feature, all 4 of these other features that we've gained throughout our quote-unquote leveling are not ones that we need to add to our actions tab. However, this one does require a little bit of explanation in how it's used, so I'm going to go ahead and set something up quickly so that we can see how that is actually going to function. Let's say, for example, that the Mind Flayer has managed to grasp onto our particular rogue and is attempting to read the rogue's mind. That's a feature that Mind Flayers have the capability to do. The Mastermind can make the choice of allowing that Mind Flayer in the sense of being able to read your character's mind. So when that happens, what you need to do is make a deception roll. So I'm going to go ahead and make a deception roll here. The Mind Flayer, on the other hand, needs to be able to actually go through and roll an insight roll. So I'm going to very quickly do that, which is just wisdom. So this will be a check. And in this particular case, our character succeeds in this particular contest because our roll was higher than their roll. That means that your character can choose to leak out a specific pile of information that might be useful to the Mind Flayer, but is completely irrelevant in truth. And as far as that Mind Flayer is concerned, what they just learned is truthful, regardless of whether it's true or not. And that really brings us to the end of the class's features. And a Mastermind, while another form of rogue, is primarily meant for social interactions and gather as much information as possible while revealing none, or being very selective in that. Due to the features gained at higher levels, specifically the means to control what information can or cannot be read from their thoughts, Masterminds are able to maintain control over specific situations around information gathering activities, thus ensuring they glean quite a bit while limiting what they leak out. I myself have never played this particular subclass, and honestly, this class would really only function in a campaign that was focused primarily around social situations, less so around combat, even though there is some of that there. I don't feel that a lot of people are going to take this particular class as a result of that. However, this does bring us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.